Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship was not impressive by galactic standards. The hull was basic metal, the weapons were simple plasma cannons, and the shields could barely stop a decent asteroid. But that was exactly what humanity wanted the galaxy to think. "Captain, we're getting a message from the Veltar command ship," said Lieutenant Kelly Roberts from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Put them on screen," Jake said. He fixed his uniform and tried to look respectful. It was all part of the act. The screen flickered, and Prince Zalthek appeared. He was tall and thin, with purple skin and 4 arms. His species ruled half the galaxy and thought they were better than everyone else. The prince wore golden robes and looked at Jake like he was looking at a bug. "Human Morrison," the prince said in his cold voice. "Your ship will move to Sector 7 and patrol the outer rim. Do not enter any restricted areas." "Yes, Your Highness," Jake replied, bowing his head slightly. "We understand our place," the prince smiled, showing teeth like needles. "Good. Remember, humans exist because we allow it. Do not forget this truth." The screen went dark. Jake's crew stayed quiet for a moment. Then Lieutenant Roberts spoke up. "I hate doing this, sir, acting like we're nothing." "I know, Kelly," Jake said softly, "but it's necessary. How long have we been playing this game?" "Almost 200 years, sir," answered Commander Rick Hayes, from the navigation station. He was older than the others, with gray hair and steady hands. "My grandfather's grandfather started this act." Jake nodded. 2 centuries ago, when humans first met the galactic powers, they had made a choice. They could fight and probably lose, or they could be smart. They chose to be smart. The galaxy was ruled by 3 great powers. The Veltar Empire controlled the core worlds with their fancy technology and royal families. The Krex Federation held the military sectors with their massive war fleets. The Zenth Collective ran the outer regions with their computer minds and robot armies. All 3 powers looked down on the smaller species. They called them minor races and treated them like servants. Humans were just another minor race to them, useful for their ability to fix things and adapt to new situations, but not important enough to worry about. This was exactly what humanity wanted them to think. Far from the bridge of the Defender, in a secret base hidden in the Kuiper Belt, Admiral Lisa Carter watched a very different kind of ship take shape. The UES Leviathan was 12 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could crack planets. It had taken 50 years to build, using technology that combined the best ideas from every species in the galaxy. "Status report, Dr. Brooks," Admiral Carter said to the man beside her. Dr. Charlie Brooks was the chief scientist on the project, a thin man with wild hair who had spent his whole life making impossible things possible. "All systems are running perfectly, Admiral," he said, checking his tablet. "The gravity engines work better than we hoped. The energy shields can stop anything the galaxy has, and the manufacturing bay can build a whole fleet while we travel." Admiral Carter smiled. She was in her 50s, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much. She had been working on this project for 20 years, ever since she was a young officer. "And they still think the Defender is our best ship?" "Yes, ma'am. Captain Morrison's performance is perfect. The galactic powers believe human technology is at least 50 years behind theirs. The truth was very different. Human technology was 50 years ahead of everyone else's. While the galactic powers fought each other and grew lazy with their success, humans had been learning. Every human diplomat was really a spy. Every human merchant was gathering information. Every human researcher was studying alien technology and figuring out how to make it better. The plan was simple, but took incredible patience. Humans would act weak and harmless while secretly becoming the most powerful force in the galaxy. When the time came, they would reveal themselves and change everything. That time was coming soon. On the Veltar throne world, Prince Zalthek met with his advisors in the Crystal Palace. The room was beautiful, with walls that showed the colors, of distant nebulae and floors that felt like walking on clouds. "The human problem grows worse," said General Kekstar, the prince's military advisor. "They spread to more worlds each year. Soon they will have colonies in every sector." "They are still weak," Prince Zaltek replied, waving one of his 4 hands. "Their ships are primitive. Their weapons are basic. What threat could they possibly be?" Meanwhile, on the Krex war moon, War Marshal Thurok paced in his command center. He was huge even for a Krex, with thick armor-like skin and tusks that could punch through steel. His species loved war and respected only strength. "The minor races forget their place," he growled to his officers. "Perhaps it is time to remind them who rules this galaxy." His second-in-command, General Braktok, nodded. "The humans, especially. They act too independent, too confident." "Then we will crush that confidence," Thurok said. "All minor races must learn to obey." In the Zenth core system, the artificial intelligence known as Zen-9 processed data from across the galaxy. Its mechanical voice spoke to the other council members through speakers built into the walls. "Analysis complete. Human expansion rate has increased by 12% in the last decade. However, their military capabilities remain constant. Threat level minimal." "Recommendations?" asked Zenth 7, another AI council member. "Continue monitoring. Consider restrictions on human movement if expansion exceeds 15% threshold." None of the galactic powers knew that every conversation they had was being recorded. Human technology had advanced far beyond their ability to detect it. Tiny sensors, invisible to any scanner they possessed, watched and listened from every important location in the galaxy. Back on the Defender, Jake Morrison received a coded message on his personal device. It was from Admiral Carter, and it contained just 2 words. "Almost ready." Jake deleted the message and looked out at the stars. Again, soon, the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. Soon, the long deception would end, but not yet. For now, he would continue to play the role of the harmless human captain, commanding a primitive ship in service to powers that thought they owned the galaxy. The irony was beautiful. In trying to keep humanity weak, the galactic powers had given them exactly what they needed: time, access, and underestimation. Soon that would all change. The greatest show in galactic history was about to begin. 3 months after Jake Morrison's meeting with Prince Zalthek, something happened that had never occurred before in galactic history. The 3 great powers called a meeting together. The Veltar Empire, the Krex Federation, and the Zenth Collective had been enemies for thousands of years. They fought wars, made deals, and broke treaties, but they never worked together. Until now. Commander Rick Hayes stood in the diplomatic bay of the UES Defender, adjusting his dress uniform. He was about to attend the most important meeting in human history, and he had to act like humanity was just another weak species begging for mercy. "Remember, Rick," Captain Morrison said quietly. "We're scared. We're desperate. We'll agree to anything to avoid a fight." "I know the role, sir," Rick replied. "But it gets harder every time." Dr. Amy Walsh stepped up beside them. She was the ship's science officer, a woman in her 30s with red hair and green eyes. Her job was to act like a simple researcher, while secretly gathering intelligence on alien technology. "My scanners are ready," she whispered. "I'll record everything they show us." The 3 humans boarded a shuttle and flew to the meeting point. It was a massive space station called Unity 1, built just for this conference. Ships from all 3 powers surrounded it, their weapons pointed outward in a show of strength. Inside the station, representatives from dozens of minor species waited nervously. The room was huge, with seats arranged in circles around a central platform. Humans sat in the back, as expected from a lesser race. Prince Zalthek entered first, his golden robes flowing behind him. War Marshal Thurok stomped in next, his heavy boots making the floor shake. Finally, a projection of Zen-9 appeared on the platform, its mechanical form flickering slightly. "Minor races of the galaxy," Prince Zalthek began, his voice echoing through the chamber. You have grown too comfortable, too independent. This ends today. War Marshal Thurok stepped forward, his tusks gleaming. For too long you have forgotten your place. You build fleets, you claim territory, you act like equals. He laughed, a sound like grinding metal. You are not equals. The mechanical voice of Zen 9 spoke next. Analysis indicates that minor race expansion threatens galactic stability. Corrective measures are required. Dr. Walsh's hidden scanners worked overtime, recording every detail of the alien technology around them. The Veltar used crystal-based computers that could process thoughts as fast as light. The Krex had armor that could stop nuclear weapons. The Zenth possessed AI systems that could predict the future with frightening accuracy. What they didn't know was that human technology could do all of these things and more. Here are our demands, Prince Zalthek continued. All minor races will surrender 75% of their military assets. All expansion will stop immediately. All research into advanced weapons will cease. A representative from the Keth species, a small, blue-skinned people, stood up shakily. Your Highness, these terms would leave us defenseless. Pirates and raiders would destroy our colonies. War Marshal Thurok grinned. Then you will pay us for protection. The strong protect the weak serve the strong. This is the natural order. Rick Hayes felt sick, but he played his part. He stood up slowly, looking around nervously. What about humanity? What do you require from us? The three rulers looked at him like he was an insect that had learned to talk. Prince Zalthek smiled coldly. Humans are special. You adapt well. You fix things. You will serve as workers and soldiers for the great powers. Soldiers? Rick asked, his voice shaking with fake fear. Yes, Thurok said. Your species breeds quickly and dies easily. Perfect for dangerous missions. You will be our expendable troops. Zen 9's projection flickered. Human colonies will serve as testing grounds for new weapons and technologies. Your high survival rate makes you ideal test subjects. Around the room, representatives from minor species looked terrified. Some began crying. Others sat in stunned silence. This wasn't just conquest, it was slavery. Dr. Walsh continued recording, her anger hidden behind a mask of scientific curiosity. Every word, every threat, every casual mention of using humans as test subjects was being sent directly to Admiral Carter on the secret base. You have 7 days to comply, Prince Zalthek announced. Any species that refuses will face the consequences. What consequences? Asked a brave representative from the Moth people. War Marshal Thurok stood up to his full height, nearly 3 meters tall. We have assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. 10,000 warships from all 3 powers. If you resist, we will demonstrate why we rule and you serve. The meeting ended with the minor species filing out in despair. Many were already discussing surrender. Some talked about fleeing to unknown regions of space. None believed they could fight and win. Rick Hayes, Dr. Walsh, and their small human delegation returned to the Defender in silence. Only when they were safely aboard did they speak freely. 10,000 ships, Dr. Walsh said, reviewing her data. That's more than we estimated. It doesn't matter, Rick replied. Quality beats quantity, and our quality is about 50 years ahead of theirs. Captain Morrison met them in the briefing room. Report? They want to use us as slave soldiers and test subjects, Rick said. Humanity will be the servant class for the entire galaxy. Expected, Morrison nodded. What about their technology? Dr. Walsh smiled for the first time that day. Nothing we can't handle. Their best shields couldn't stop our basic weapons. Their fastest ships couldn't catch our slowest fighters. They're living in the past. Meanwhile, in the Kuiper Belt, Admiral Carter received the full report. She stood in the command center of the UES Leviathan, watching her crew make final preparations. The ship was ready. The weapons were charged. The fighters were fueled. Colonel Ben Parker, her military advisor, approached with a tablet full of data. Admiral, our embedded agents report that the enemy fleet is gathering at coordinates 447 Alpha. They're so confident they're not even trying to hide. Good, Carter said. Overconfidence has always been their weakness. Chief Engineer Tony Miller, walked up, wiping grease from his hands. "Ma'am, all systems are running at 300% efficiency. The ship is performing better than we ever dreamed." Admiral Carter looked at the tactical display showing enemy fleet positions. 10,000 ships seemed like an impossible number to fight. For any other species it would be. But humanity had spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment. Every human in the galaxy had played their part. The merchants who were really spies. The diplomats who were really intelligence officers. The researchers who were really weapons designers. "Send a message to all human vessels," Admiral Carter ordered. "Operation Freedom begins in 7 days. Tell them it's time to stop pretending." Across the galaxy, humans received coded messages on devices the aliens couldn't detect. Suddenly, the weak and helpless humans began to change. Scientists revealed hidden laboratories. Merchants opened secret weapon caches. Diplomats activated sleeper cells that had been waiting for decades. In his private chambers on the Veltar throne world, Prince Zalthek reviewed reports from his spies. "The minor races are panicking," he told General Kextar. "Some are already surrendering." "What about the humans?" the general asked. "They sent a message accepting our terms completely. They even offered to help us control the other minor races." Prince Zalthek laughed. "Humans are even weaker than we thought. This will be easier than expected." On the Krex war moon, similar conversations were happening. War Marshal Thurok was pleased that humanity had surrendered so quickly. "They know. They cannot fight us," he told his officers. Smart of them to accept reality. The Zenth AIs calculated that human compliance was 97% certain. Their models showed no possibility of resistance from such a primitive species. None of them knew that in 6 days, their understanding of the galaxy would change forever. The greatest deception in history was about to end, and the greatest revelation was about to begin. The storm was gathering, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what they really were. Day 7 arrived with the silence of space itself. Across the galaxy, 10,000 alien warships waited in formation, their weapons ready to enforce the will of the 3 great powers. On Unity Station, Prince Zalthek, War Marshal Thurok, and Zen 9 watched their screens, expecting to see minor species surrendering their fleets. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, knowing that everything humanity had worked for during the past 2 centuries would be decided in the next few hours. His crew watched him carefully, waiting for the signal that would change galactic history. "Open a channel to all frequencies," Jake said quietly. "Galactic-wide broadcast." Lieutenant Kelly Roberts' fingers moved across her console. "Channel open, sir. The entire galaxy is listening." Jake straightened his uniform and faced the main screen. His expression was perfect, defeated, desperate, and completely harmless. The performance of his lifetime was about to begin. "Leaders of the great powers," he began, his voice shaking with fake fear. "This is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Defender. Humanity accepts your terms completely. We surrender our independence and offer ourselves to your service." On Unity Station, the 3 rulers smiled with satisfaction. War Marshal Thurok laughed loudly. "The humans break faster than I expected. Their captain sounds ready to cry." But Jake wasn't finished. His next words carried a coded signal that humans across the galaxy had been waiting 200 years to hear. "We understand that we are nothing compared to your greatness. We are simple people who fix things and adapt to new situations. We have always been good at adapting." The word adapting was the trigger. Across the galaxy, thousands of humans who had spent their lives pretending to be merchants, diplomats, researchers, and workers suddenly stopped pretending. On the Veltar throne world, a human janitor named Mike Davis was cleaning the palace floors when he heard the signal. He calmly walked to a maintenance closet, opened a hidden panel, and activated a device that began recording every military communication on the planet. On the Krex war moon, Dr. Sarah Kim had spent 10 years as a research assistant in their weapons labs. She heard Jake's words and smiled as she activated a program that downloaded every weapons design in the Krex database. In the Zenth core system, Human trade representative Bob Wilson had been negotiating contracts for 15 years. When the Chion signal came, he pressed a button that activated hidden sensors throughout the Zenth computer networks. Similar scenes played out on thousands of worlds. Humans who had been invisible for decades suddenly revealed that they had been mapping, recording, and studying everything the galactic powers possessed. But the biggest revelation was yet to come. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center of the UES Leviathan, hidden in the shadow of Jupiter. Around her, the greatest warship ever built hummed with power that could reshape the galaxy. "Admiral," Chief Engineer Tony Miller reported, "all systems ready. The ship is performing beyond all expectations." "Communications ready," Lieutenant Kelly Roberts said from her new station aboard the Supercarrier. She had been transferred to the Leviathan just hours before, along with many other key personnel. Admiral Carter nodded. At 55, she had spent half her life preparing for this moment. Open a channel. Full galactic broadcast. It's time they met the real human fleet. The transmission began, and suddenly every screen in the galaxy showed something impossible. The UES Leviathan emerged from behind Jupiter like a mountain made of metal and light. 12 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that made the Alliance's best ships look like toys. Prince Zaltek's forearms trembled as he stared at the screen. That cannot be real. Humans do not possess such technology." War Marshal Thurok's mouth fell open, his tusks clicking together. "Impossible. Our spies would have detected something so massive." Zen 9's mechanical voice stuttered for the first time in centuries. Error. Recalculating threat assessment. Previous data incorrect. Admiral Carter appeared on every screen in the galaxy. Her calm, confident voice replaced Jake Morrison's fake desperation. "Greetings, Galaxy. I am Admiral Lisa Carter of the United Earth Space Force. For 200 years you have known us as a minor species. Today, you learn the truth." She gestured to the massive ship around her. "The UES Leviathan is not just a warship, it is a factory, a fortress, and a statement. While you have ruled through fear and force, we have grown through learning and patience." Dr. Charlie Brooks stepped into view, his wild hair even messier than usual. "Every technology you possess, we have studied and improved. Your crystal computers, our quantum processors are faster. Your energy shields, ours are stronger. Your weapons, ours are more precise." The camera moved through the ship, showing fighter bays that stretched for kilometers, manufacturing centers that could build entire fleets and weapon systems that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics. "But technology is not our greatest achievement," Admiral Carter continued. "Our greatest achievement is what we did while you weren't watching." The broadcast switched to show feeds from across the galaxy. Human agents were revealing themselves everywhere, demonstrating that they had been inside every major government, every military base, every research facility for decades. "Every conversation you have had, we have recorded. Every plan you have made, we have known. Every secret you have kept, we have stolen. For 2 centuries, you have been teaching us how to defeat you." Major Steve Collins appeared on screen from the Leviathan's Fighter Control Center. Behind him, rows of pilots prepared for launch. "Our fighters don't just fly, they think. Each one is controlled by an artificial intelligence more advanced than your best computers." The alien rulers watched in growing horror as the humans revealed capability after capability. Gravity manipulation that let ships ignore physics. Energy weapons that could slice through any known armor. Shields that could absorb and redirect any attack. Captain Nina Torres spoke from the bridge of another ship, the UES Falcon. "We have 17 ships like the Leviathan hidden throughout the galaxy. Each one can build more ships while traveling. We are not just a fleet. We are a growing force." The broadcast returned to Admiral Carter. "But we are not conquerors. We do not seek to rule through fear. We offer you a choice that you have never given others." Her expression became stern. "Join us in building a galaxy where strength protects the weak, or continue your old ways and face the consequences. You have 1 hour to decide." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. On Unity Station, the 3 rulers stared at blank screens. Finally, Prince Zalthek spoke in a whisper. "How long have they been watching us?" 200 years, War Marshal Thurok said slowly. "Every battle plan, every secret meeting, every private conversation." Zen 9's voice was barely audible. Threat assessment update. Humanity poses existential risk to current galactic order. Probability of successful resistance, 0.01%. Commander Paul Watson, who had been sitting quietly in the back of the station as a human observer, stood up and walked to the central platform. The alien guards moved to stop him, but he pressed a button on his wrist. Every weapon in the room suddenly powered down. "Gentlemen," he said politely, "Admiral Carter would like to discuss terms." The three most powerful beings in the galaxy realized that they were no longer in control. The humans they had planned to enslave were now offering them mercy. The age of human deception was over. The age of human protection had begun. In the darkness of space, the UES Leviathan waited patiently for an answer, its weapons charged but its intentions peaceful. Around it, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen when the weak revealed they had always been the strong. War Marshal Thurok's pride burned hotter than a dying star. Standing in the command center of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Bone Crusher, he refused to accept what he had seen. The idea that humans were more advanced than the Kreks was impossible to believe. "Admiral Carter lies," he growled to his officers. "No species develops such technology in secret. This is an illusion, a trick to make us afraid." General Braktok, his second in command, nodded eagerly. "The humans are clever, but they cannot fool sensors. Our scanners show only one large ship, not 17. "Exactly," Thurok said, his tusks gleaming. "They build one impressive vessel and use holograms to make us think there are more. We have 10,000 real warships. They have one fake supercarrier." Prince Zalthek, watching from his golden command ship Crystal Throne, felt less certain. His advisors whispered among themselves, trying to understand how humans could have hidden such capabilities. But his pride would not let him back down. "Feltar Empire does not bow to primitives," he declared. "If the humans want war, they shall have it. Our weapons have conquered 1,000 worlds." The Zenth Collective's response was purely mathematical. Zen 9 had recalculated the odds a dozen times, but the numbers kept changing. The AI finally concluded that combat was necessary to gather accurate data. "Analysis requires direct observation," Zen 9 announced to the collective. "Recommend limited engagement to test human capabilities." Within minutes, the largest military force in galactic history began moving toward Earth's solar system. 3,000 Kreks warships led the charge, their hulls black as space and weapons glowing red. 2,000 Veltar vessels followed, beautiful and deadly with crystal armor that bent light around them. 5,000 Zenth drones swarmed behind them, each one a perfect killing machine controlled by artificial intelligence. Admiral Carter watched the approaching fleet from the bridge of the Leviathan. Her crew worked calmly at their stations, showing no fear despite facing impossible odds. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. "Enemy fleet approaching, Admiral," reported Commander Rick Hayes from the tactical station. "All ships are armed and advancing at full speed." "Any surrender offers?" Admiral Carter asked. "None, ma'am. War Marshal Thurok is broadcasting threats. Prince Zalthek demands we kneel before his empire. The Zenth are running battle calculations." Admiral Carter smiled sadly. "They still don't understand. Very well. Let's show them what 2 centuries of preparation can accomplish." She turned to Major Steve Collins at the fighter control station. "Steve, launch all squadrons. But remember the rules of engagement." "Yes, ma'am. Disable, don't destroy. Show mercy to those who show none." Major Collins pressed a series of buttons, and the Leviathan's massive fighter bays opened like the mouth of some ancient beast. What emerged was not squadrons or wings, but clouds of fighters that moved like flocks of metallic birds. Each fighter was small, barely larger than an old Earth jet, but they flew in perfect formation controlled by artificial intelligence that thought faster than any organic brain. There were not hundreds of them, but thousands, streaming from the Supercarrier in waves that seemed endless. War Marshal Thurok watched the display with growing unease. "How many fighters does that ship carry?" "Sensors indicate approximately 5,000 small craft," General Bracktalk reported. "But they are tiny. Our ships will crush them easily." The first Krex battleship fired its main guns, massive plasma cannons that could melt asteroids. The beam struck a group of human fighters dead center. The Krex crew cheered, expecting to see debris and destruction. Instead, the human fighters flickered slightly and kept flying. The energy beams had passed right through them. "Impossible," Thurok breathed. "Nothing can phase through plasma fire." But the humans had done more than learn alien technology. They had broken the rules that aliens thought were absolute. Their fighters didn't just fly through space, they flew through dimensions, slipping between reality's layers like ghosts. The human fighters reached the Krex fleet and began their own attack. But instead of destroying ships, they did something far more disturbing. They disabled them. Weapons stopped working. Engines shut down. Life support remained online. But the ships became helpless. Captain Nina Torres commanded the UES Falcon, one of the escort ships accompanying the Leviathan. Her destroyer was tiny compared to the alien dreadnoughts, but it moved like lightning, appearing and disappearing faster than enemy sensors could track. "Falcon to Leviathan," she reported. "We've disabled 3 Krex battlecruisers and 1 Veltar. Command ship. No casualties on either side." This was perhaps the most terrifying thing of all. The humans were not killing their enemies. They were choosing not to kill them, and that choice demonstrated power beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Prince Zalthek's crystal throne fired its most powerful weapon, a beam of pure energy that could crack planets. The beam struck the Leviathan directly, lighting up the Supercarrier's shields like a small sun. When the light faded, the Leviathan was completely undamaged. The human ship had absorbed the energy and was now glowing slightly brighter, as if the attack had made it stronger. "Our most powerful weapon did nothing," General Kextar whispered. "Their shields absorbed everything." The Zenth drones attacked, in perfect coordination, 5,000 artificial minds working as one. They fired precisely calculated shots that should have overwhelmed any defense. Instead, the human fighters danced between the attacks, their movements so fluid and graceful that they seemed to be performing a deadly ballet. Dr. Charlie Brooks spoke from the Leviathan science station, his voice calm despite the battle raging around them. "Enemy weapons are operating within expected parameters. Our shields are absorbing 97% of incoming energy. Fighter losses, 0. The battle continued for 6 hours, and in that time the galaxy learned a terrible truth. The 3 great powers, working together with the largest fleet in history, could not damage a single human ship. Meanwhile, the humans had disabled over half the enemy fleet without killing a single alien. War Marshal Thurok sat in his command chair, watching his mighty fleet being dismantled piece by piece. Ships that had conquered worlds were floating helplessly in space, their crews alive, but powerless. "Retreat," he said quietly. "Sir?" General Bracktalk couldn't believe his ears. "I said retreat," Thurok roared. "Get our ships away from here before they disable us all." But it was too late. Commander Paul Watson materialized on the bridge of the Bone Crusher, stepping out of what looked like empty air. The Krex guards raised their weapons, but they wouldn't fire. "Gentlemen," Paul said politely, "Admiral Carter would like to discuss terms. She's waiting in your conference room." Thurok turned to find Admiral Carter sitting calmly at the head of his own conference table, as if she had been there all along. She wore a simple uniform and carried no weapons, but her presence filled the room with quiet authority. "How did you get aboard my ship?" Thurok demanded. "We've been able to transport through your shields for 50 years, Admiral Carter replied. "Your security systems are quite impressive, but they're designed to stop the technology you understand. We stopped using that technology decades ago." Prince Zalthek appeared on the communication screen, his forearms shaking with rage and fear. "What do you want from us?" "The same thing we've always wanted," Admiral Carter said. "Peace. But not the peace of the conquered serving the conqueror. Real peace, where all species are protected and none are enslaved. Zen 9's mechanical voice joined the conversation. Terms? Simple, Admiral Carter replied. End the attacks on minor species. Recognize their right to exist freely. Work with us to build a galaxy where strength protects instead of oppresses. And if we refuse? Prince Zalthek asked. Admiral Carter's expression didn't change, but somehow she seemed more dangerous than all the weapons in the galaxy. Then we will do what we must to protect those who cannot protect themselves. But we would prefer to do it with your help rather than despite your resistance. War Marshal Thurok looked at his disabled fleet, at the human fighters still circling like sharks, at the supercarrier that had absorbed his best attack without damage. For the first time in his life, the great warrior felt truly defeated. We surrender, he said quietly. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. 6 months after the great battle, the galaxy was a different place. The UES Leviathan traveled slowly through space, visiting system after system, like a mobile embassy of change. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in her ready room, reviewing reports from across the galaxy, amazed at how quickly things had transformed. President Helen Martinez had arrived 3 weeks after the battle aboard the UES Constitution, a diplomatic vessel that had been hidden in the asteroid belt. She was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes, chosen to lead humanity's new role in galactic politics. The Keth people have established their first independent government in 300 years, President Martinez reported during their daily meeting. The moth colonies are rebuilding their destroyed cities. The Veltar are actually helping them. Admiral Carter smiled. Prince Zalthek has been surprisingly cooperative since our talk. The prince had changed dramatically after experiencing defeat. His pride was broken, but instead of becoming bitter, he had become curious. He spent hours asking human advisors how they had achieved such technological advancement through cooperation instead of conquest. Admiral, Commander Rick Hayes entered the ready room with a tablet full of data. We have a situation on Krex Prime. Some of the old guard are refusing to accept the new treaties. Admiral Carter sighed. Change was never easy, especially for a species that had built their entire culture around domination. What kind of resistance? General Groktar has declared himself the true war marshal. He's gathered about 50 ships and is threatening to attack human colonies. 50 ships, Admiral Carter mused. That used to be a serious threat. President Martinez looked concerned. Should we send a fleet? No, Admiral Carter said. Send Jake Morrison in the Defender. Let him handle this diplomatically. 3 days. Later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship as it approached the rebel Krex fleet. The Defender still looked like a primitive vessel, but now everyone in the galaxy knew better. The ship's true capabilities remained hidden, ready to surprise anyone foolish enough to attack. This is General Groktar. A harsh voice came over the communications. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. We do not recognize human authority. Jake opened a channel, his voice calm and patient. General, this is Captain Morrison. I'd like to talk. May I come aboard your ship? You would trust yourself to our mercy? Groktar sounded surprised. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? An hour later, Jake sat across from General Groktar, in the Krex ship's conference room. The general was old even for a Krex, with scars covering his thick hide and tusks yellowed with age. You are either very brave or very stupid, human, Groktar growled. Probably both, Jake replied with a smile. But I wanted to talk to you about something important. You're a warrior, right? You respect strength? Of course. Strength is everything. Jake leaned forward. Then you understand that true strength protects those who cannot protect themselves. What strength is there in bullying the weak? Groktar was quiet for a long moment. The old ways. The old ways failed, Jake said gently. Your best fleet was defeated without losing a single human life. But we're not here to replace the old ways with tyranny. We're here to replace them with something better. By the end of their conversation, General Groktar had agreed to meet with Admiral Carter. Within a week, he had become one of humanity's strongest supporters among the Krex military. Meanwhile, Dr. Amy Walsh worked with alien scientists in laboratories across the galaxy. The woman who had spent years pretending to be a simple researcher was now sharing human discoveries that revolutionized alien understanding of physics, chemistry, and biology. The key, she explained to a group of Zenth AIs, is that we never saw other species' knowledge as threats to overcome, but as gifts to learn from. Every alien technology made us stronger, not by copying it, but by understanding it and improving. The Zenth AIs processed this information with growing fascination. Zen 9, the former council leader, had become humanity's most enthusiastic student. Your approach contradicts all previous models of technological development, it said in its mechanical voice. Exactly, Dr. Walsh replied. That's why it worked. Colonel Ben Parker, now promoted to general, established military academies throughout the galaxy. Former enemies learned human tactics and philosophy side by side. Krex warriors trained with Veltar officers while Zenth drones learned about organic creativity. The strongest military is not the one that can destroy the most, General Parker taught his mixed classes. It's the one that can protect the most while destroying the least. His star students included young officers from all three former great powers. They learned that victory through overwhelming force was less impressive than victory through superior strategy and technology. Captain Nina Torres had been promoted to admiral and given command of the Second Fleet. Her ships patrolled the outer rim, hunting down the last remnants of the old order's extremist groups. Pirates, slavers, and warlords who had thrived under the previous system found themselves facing human justice. This is Admiral Torres, she broadcast to a group of slave ships trying to escape human space. Release your prisoners and surrender. You have 60 seconds to comply. The slavers tried to run, but human ships were faster. They tried to fight, but human weapons were stronger. Most importantly, they tried to use their prisoners as shields, but human technology could disable their ships without harming anyone aboard. Within minutes, hundreds of enslaved beings were free, and their captors were in human custody. It was becoming a familiar pattern across the galaxy. On the first anniversary of the Great Battle, representatives from over 400 species gathered for the first Galactic Assembly. The meeting took place aboard the Leviathan in a massive hall that had been constructed in the ship's center. Admiral Carter stood before the assembly looking out at faces both alien and familiar. Former enemies sat next to former victims. Species that had never been allowed to speak now had voices in galactic governance. 1 year ago, she began, this galaxy was ruled by fear. The strong took what they wanted, and the weak suffered in silence. Today we begin something new. She gestured to the mixed crowd before her. This assembly represents every known intelligent species. Each has an equal voice. Each has the right to exist freely. Each has the protection of those strong enough to provide it. Prince Zalthek, now an elected representative of the reformed Veltar government, stood to speak. Admiral Carter, the Veltar people apologize for our past actions. We wish to ask, how did humanity resist the temptation to become what we were? Admiral Carter smiled. Because we learned something important during our centuries of hiding. Power without purpose is meaningless. Technology without wisdom is dangerous. Strength without compassion is just another form of weakness. War Marshal Thurok, who had retired in shame but had been invited as an observer, raised his hand. What happens when someone challenges this new order? When someone tries to return to the old ways? Then we stop them, Admiral Carter replied, simply. But we stop them the human way. We disable their ability to harm others while preserving their ability to learn better. Zen 9's projection flickered as it processed the implications. This system appears to be self-sustaining. Those who embrace cooperation are rewarded with protection and prosperity. Those who choose aggression are contained, but not destroyed. Exactly, President Martinez said, taking the podium. We're not trying to control the galaxy. We're trying to free it. Free it from the cycle of conquest and revenge that has trapped it for millennia. As the assembly continued, Admiral Carter stepped outside onto one of the Leviathan's observation decks. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see the stars and the ships of dozens of species traveling peacefully together. Commander Paul Watson joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thinking about the old days?" he asked. "Sometimes," she replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Do you think we did the right thing? All that deception, all those years of pretending to be weak?" Paul considered the question carefully. "I think we did what we had to do. If we had revealed ourselves too early, they would have destroyed us. If we had waited too long, they would have destroyed everyone else." Through the window, they watched a Veltar science vessel dock with a Krex transport, their crews working together on some joint project. A group of young beings from a dozen different species played some kind of game in the ship's recreation area. "Look at that," Admiral Carter said, pointing to the mixed group. "Children who will grow up thinking, this is normal, cooperation instead of conquest, protection instead of predation." "The galaxy is growing up," Paul agreed. Finally. As the Leviathan continued its journey through space, its mission remained the same as it had always been: to protect those who needed protection and to teach those willing to learn. The age of human deception was over, but the age of human guardianship had just begun. The galaxy was safe, not because humanity had conquered it, but because humanity had chosen to protect it. And in making that choice, they had become something more than conquerors or rulers. They had become hope.